she'll click in, but then he'll be tired and like. Let me just go back.
There we go. There's the mic. The mic's working. What's up, guys? How's my connection? I tried to do this stream a few hours ago, and my electricity went out. We've had 3 days with no water. 3 days no water, and then the electricity goes out right when I start to stream. Jessica's laughing, but she really wants to cry. Ari's screaming. She's been screaming all day. Oh, the sound's back, guys. It's back on. What's up, everybody? Discover the Wild Homestead. What's up, Herb Stomp, Matty Tack? A bunch of the usual suspects. Look at all you troublemakers in the chat. What's up, everybody? Coming at you from Fat Earth. From the southern hemisphere of the Fat Earth. Man, what a day. What a day. No, you live in a place like Ecuador and you live in the middle of nowhere. You deal with things like water outages. They're persistent. 3 days no water, but we've got a big tank of backup water. And I think it filled up for a little bit last night. We have the worst out of our whole town. Our neighborhood has the worst water system. Terrible water system. Let's see there. All right, guys. So we're talking about Dr. Greger, the reality bender today. Dr. Greger totally schooled Ben Pakulski, B-Pack. Ben Pakulski, who is he's a bodybuilder, IFBB pro bodybuilder. Huge freaking guy. Massive. Ben Pakulski. He's got a good podcast. I suggest you check it out. Ben Pakulski's podcast. Let me pull up the tabs here. It's just at benpakulski.com. And he interviewed Dr. Greger. And I listened to a few clips of it earlier, and I thought, we got to do a stream with this. The meatards have to hear this. Somebody sent me this podcast, and it's hilarious. I listened to about the first 10 minutes of it. We're going to give it a little listen. We're going to give a quick review on Dr. Greger's great logic skills and his amazing scientific prowess. He's going to totally smash Ben Pakulski. He's going to put him right back in line. So we got Dr. Greger. That's Dr. Greger right there. Dr. Michael Greger wants you to live forever. There you go. Dr. Greger, slanging that. Live forever. Slinging the dream. Live forever like Dr. Greger. There's Dr. Greger next to a 9-year-old girl. That chick's, she's on Trenbolone probably. Somebody should call USADA. And I think USADA's got to check this girl out. I'm pretty sure she's on the gear. We could ask Durian Ryder. He's an expert on these things. But there's him being out-angled by a 9-year-old. But she does have a pump. She didn't tell him that they were going to take a picture. There's Ben Pakulski. Whoa! Massive. That dude's legs are as big as the tires on my car. It's crazy. Ridiculous. So Ben Pakulski, not all his blood is flowing into those legs. That dude actually does have some blood flowing into the brain there, and he does a really damn good job on his podcast, which I haven't listened to in a few years. But somebody sent me the link to the Dr. Greger episode, and I got to check out Ben Pakulski's podcast and maybe dive into some more episodes because he does do a really good job here. So let's hear what Dr. Greger has to say to Ben Pakulski.
On the show, and here's why. If someone as intelligent as a physician as Dr. Greger is, I want to hear their opinion. I want to hear their perspective. I want to hear why they have these beliefs around why veganism is the best. To be honest, he's a little opinionated. He's a little resistant to the fact that other research exists, but I think it's still valuable to hear his perspective and maybe learn to combine what Dr. Greger has to say with whatever your current thoughts and beliefs are. Now, I definitely don't claim to be an expert on this topic. Veganism, carnivore, it seems that the answer probably lies somewhere in the middle, which is why I always choose to bring on experts on both sides of the
a long time. I don't want to have factors and other vitamins know that organic is in there. At night, something you know.
I have a great discussion with you about the pros of veganism.
All right, so we jump forward here. There's a couple little ads.
Products.
Let's jump into it,
Let's dig right into it. I mean, not beating around the bush. We had a bit of a conversation leading up to this. And we started going down the path of talking about animals as being carcinogenic.
Processed meat. So the IARC, the World Health Organization body that determines what is and is not cancer-causing, has determined that bacon, ham, hot dogs, lunch meat, sausage, etc., is a Category 1 carcinogen. So that means we are as sure processed meat causes cancer than we are that smoking causes cancer and plutonium causes cancer and asbestos causes cancer. It's the highest level of surety. Whereas, for example, red meat, like a steak or something, is only a probable human carcinogen.
Okay, so starts off right off the bat saying that the World Health Organization, the IRC, the World Health Organization, right? Authority says it's true. Interesting angle to take. I definitely don't think that just an immediate appeal to authority by Dr. Greger is the best way to go to convince somebody. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, look at the guy.
Get to your question. Ismail asks.
Okay. There's Dr. Greger's channel. You can check out Dr. Greger's YouTube channel.
This is Dr. Greger in the kitchen, where I take the science and put it into practice. Today I'm going to share with you my new favorite beverage, a vegetable smoothie. I know that sounds kind of gross, but bear with me. The idea for this came out of my research into nitrate-rich vegetables like beetroot and spinach.
Nitrates. So, of course, remember, guys, nitrates in processed meats are super bad for you. Nitrites and nitrates in processed meats, so bad. Bacon, super bad because nitrates and nitrites. But when it's in vegetables, apparently that's really good. So, where's the explanation for why nitrates and nitrites in meats are bad and then in vegetables they're good? I'm not so sure why, but Dr. Greger says so. Maybe they'll get into it here in the podcast. But so he references the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization, in my opinion, is not a credible authority on anything. Right? The World Health Organization was set up in 1945. Or it might have been 1948, after World War II, when the Allied powers, basically the massive corporate interest behind the war machine that drove World War II, came together after the failed League of Nations after World War I and created the United Nations after World War II, which is essentially an organization, an international organization where NGOs, massive corporations, transnational corporations, and these big moneyed interests are able to leverage their powers outside of the usual framework of sovereign nations. So they're essentially creating a world governmental structure where these fake authorities dictate to the nations of the world what is true, what is sustainable, and what is acceptable behavior. So I, for one, give no credibility to the World Health Organization. But some people do. Apparently, Dr. Greger thinks the World Health Organization is fantastic. Now, you got to wonder, though, if the World Health Organization said that meat is good and that plants maybe aren't so good and that, bobblehead Greger maybe doesn't know what he's talking about, I wonder if Greger would still be down for the World Health Organization. If it wasn't pushing this vegan agenda, this plant-based agenda, right? Clean meat. That's the thing we're going to see a lot of in the next few years. Lab-grown meat, so-called clean meat. If they weren't pushing this stuff, I wonder if Mr. Bobblehead Greger here would actually think that they were a legitimate organization, or is he just latching on to them because they tell him what he wants to hear? Let's hear what he has to say.
Okay, interesting. Now,
so again, what he just said is processed meat causes cancer by royal decree of the UN. Now, we've talked a little bit about this processed meat causing cancer thing and how I think it's a whole bunch of hogwash, and this is not backed by legitimate science. A lot of people have discussed this in depth, so we're not going to go really in depth in critiquing his ridiculous claim there. But saying that red meat probably causes cancer, Ben Pakulski right off the bat seems like he might be biting his tongue, and he might be a little bit more well-versed on this than the traditional Dr. Gregorium's Wonder Emporium audience. So let's see what Ben's got to say. He's a pretty clever guy.
my opinion on that, or what I know, is that I've seen conflicting data saying that some data has, said, hey, this could possibly be leading to some negative health implications in humans. And then you have other data that says it causes absolutely no health implications. And now who do we know? How do we know who to believe? It seems like it's
that's what the IARC is for, right? That's why we have these international bodies which have hundreds of the top scientists in the world to sift through the thousands of studies, so we don't have to. So that's why, we all don't have to sit around twiddling our thumbs and saying, what do you think the RDA for vitamin C is? Oh, I think we need 20 a day. I think we need 30 a day. Oh, the National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine sets the RDAs based on the best available balance of evidence. And the IARC determines what is and is not cancer causing. Are cell phones cancer causing? What's cancer? Well, that's why you go to the IARC. Now, if for whatever reason you think there's, some kind.
All right, so the great Gregor seems to be glitching a little bit there. We've got a glitchy Gregor on our hands. How dare you question these authorities, Ben Pakulski? Well, that's why we have the IRC. That's why we have these people there. We don't have to think for ourselves. These people will think for us. I don't know about that, guys. The immediate appeal to authority, immediately saying, well, we shouldn't think about these things. We've got these international organizations run by big business and essentially headed by pharmaceutical and big agriculture interests that will tell us exactly what is sustainable, what is healthy at the WHO and at the UN. That's pushing it right there. So I would say that I really hope he calls them out. Let's see.
Or people on the, then you can challenge them, but that's the default position is we should, and
all right, so he knows he's full of shit right here, and he's really triggered. It's the default position. It's the authoritative position. Well, the mainstream believes this, so therefore it's true. Already falling apart. First question, just totally crumbling.
Would take an overwhelming amount of evidence to challenge the kind of mainstream view. So if you think the earth is flat, more power to you. But, to challenge the prevailing kind of scientific understanding, the scientific consensus, you have to have just an extraordinary amount of evidence to suggest that, that every other scientist got it wrong.
All right, so... just totally muddying the waters there. First of all, it says if you don't agree with me and if you don't agree with the UN, then you believe the world is flat, right? Like I said before, we are fat earthers here. We believe that the earth is fat, super freaking fat. And that's one of the major problems going on right now. The world's too damn fat, especially in the Western world. So Gregor says you're a flat earther, right? Tries to discredit anybody who disagrees with him. And because the authorities, What the fuck?
I don't know that it's every other scientist, and again, just to play devil's advocate, like I've said, I've seen
Patient man,
definitive
Ben
research that
Pakulski.
says there's absolutely nothing detrimental about meat or animal products. Obviously, the dairy, I think, is a whole different topic when it comes to just eating meat in itself. What mechanism does the World Health Organization suggest is the mechanism that is leading us to cancer?
That's a good question. So there's a bunch of purported mechanisms, so we don't know why. I mean, it could be the nitrosamines.
So we don't know why. We don't know why. I'm just going to say a few things down. Nitrosamines, nitrates, nitrites. But when nitrites are in plants, they're great. Plant nitrites, good. Animal nitrates, bad. Okay.
It could be the heme iron. I mean, it could be TMAO. It could be, saturated fat, even cholesterol.
All right, so TMAO. So he just throws out, cholesterol, TMAO, saturated fat. TMAO and cholesterol, huh? Well, that's pretty interesting. Because TMAO, it's not so cut and dried, guys. TMAO, not so cut and dried. Well, Jegs, will you please stop teasing me? You guys can tell what kind of products I've been looking at online last month. Valve stem seals and valve springs. Long story. So elevated levels of TMAO, a compound linked to the consumption of fish, seafood, and a primarily vegetarian diet, may reduce hypertension-related heart disease symptoms. New research in rats finds that low-dose treatment with TMAO reduced heart thickening and markers of heart failure in an animal model of hypertension. So, in the Gregorian logic, the great Gregorian logic, TMAO, and this is everybody's favorite vegan cardiologist, the con man, Dr. Joel Kahn, in the when he was talking to Chris Kresser, was talking about TMAO también. He was talking about TMAO as well. And Kresser actually was refuting what he was saying by saying, look, TMAO is really high in fish, which is one of these foods that we say to eat for a heart-healthy diet. Here's an article right now, published just 10 days ago, a study concerning TMAO and how it's beneficial in an animal model of hypertension for promoting heart health. So if TMAO is so bad, why is there research looking at it in animal models as a preventative treatment for heart disease, for reducing heart thickening, cardiac fibrosis, and markers of heart failure in an animal model of hypertension? Total contradiction there. So hypocritical, right? So TMAO, when it comes from animals, is super bad. But when TMAO comes from plants, it's really good. So you guys, if you find Dr. Joel Kahn, he's on he's all over the social medias. You can ask him about it on Twitter, and we could see what Dr. Joel Kahn has to say about TMAO. Because I guess if TMAO nitrates are in animals, they're bad. But if they're in plants, all good. In fact, there are far higher levels of TMAO in many plant foods than you're going to find in any meat. So I'm sure the vegans will do some mental gymnastics there. They'll say, well, it's a different form of TMAO. It's a totally different type of TMAO. But these people, they want it both ways, right? It's just showing you right there how intellectually dishonest so many people can be. Like when we build our whole life around pushing a vegan ideology, right? When you go and you get in debt to become a doctor, when you go and you're spending 8 extra years of your life in the university system to get your doctorate, and then you've got to do your residency, you're already so in debt. You've already taken out so many student loans, or mommy and daddy maybe paid for it if you're lucky. But for the most part, a lot of these docs are highly in debt. They're all pumped up on pride, right? They think they're geniuses, right? They're in this echo chamber of the university for a whole decade, and then they get released on the public. And many of these people have never even actually practiced as a doctor. How long did Dr. Greger actually practice as a doctor? I haven't looked into this, but what I've heard is that Dr. Greger just jumped right into the promotional side of it. He doesn't even have a practice. At least Dr. Joel Kahn's a practicing cardiologist. He's got that fake authority that he can call upon. As if somehow having numbers and letters after your name, I mean, I don't even know the difference between numbers and letters, so you shouldn't listen to me. But having some letters after your name somehow gives you credibility, to the dumbed down masses, right? To the people that worship these fake authority figures and that believe, ooh, the World Health Organization said that? They said that processed meat causes cancer? It must be true. Right? For the average dummy, you can call to authority, but we've got a pretty nuanced and intelligent audience here. What do you guys think? Just because Gregor says so, just because somebody who's got a PhD says that something is so, does that make it so? Absolutely not. And the fact that Gregor tries to say that all scientists agree with this, that is totally untrue. If you look at the WHO study, it wasn't even really a study. They cherry-picked a few studies out of many. They omitted so many. And then they just made this claim that processed meat causes cancer. Right? By royal international decree of the UN, processed meat bad. When you actually look at the evidence, it's paper thin. And he tries to say it's just as sure as smoking and plutonium. Right? So it's just straight propaganda logic right here. Right? Very, very propagandistic way of going about it. And seems quite upset with Pakulski that he immediately kind of refuted and said, look, well, maybe this isn't the whole story. From what I understand, this is not exactly true. And Dr. Gregor says, oh, well, if you think the earth is flat and you disagree with all the scientists believe, sprinkle the words, science, science. He thinks that'll work. I mean, that does work on a majority of dummies, right? Like real dumb people, they watch TV and they're just like, well, what do the celebrities have to say about this? Right? Like how do we figure out what is real? Well, we watch TV. We see what celebrities have to say about it. We see what authority figures have to say. And that's what Dr. Gregor wants to be. Him and guys like Joe Kahn, they want to be the celebrity. They want to be the Bill Nye the Science Guy telling you, I mean, in the 90s, there's two genders and it's decided by how many chromosomes you have. And then, now, Bill Nye saying gender is a spectrum, right? So science and biology constantly changing according to Bill Nye. And these mental gymnastics we're going to see from Joe Kahn and guys like Gregor, pretty damn similar. But let's move on. Let's see how Pakulski handles this. Patient guy, intelligent guy, Ben Pakulski. Let's see what he does here.
It could be the new 5GC. It could be, and so there's certainly mechanistically.
Certainly,
there's
mechanistically,
lots of different ways it could happen. We're not exactly
scientifically. Surely, yes.
sure why. For similar reasons, we don't know why fruits and vegetables exactly are so wonderful for us. Is it the fiber, the folate, the phytonutrients? Who knows? But we know that, and not just from kind of observational studies where people who eat lots of fruits and vegetables live longer and healthier. You can do randomized controlled trials. There's only one diet that's ever been proven to reverse heart disease in the majority of patients, and that's the plant-based diet. I mean, so if that's all the plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, reversing other leading killers, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. No other diet on the planet has ever been shown to do that. And so if you care about health and longevity...
And he doesn't even cite the studies that he's talking about. He just declares it. We know it's going to reverse heart disease.
That's what you eat.
And if you ask, okay, well, what causes heart disease, Dr. Gregor? What would his answer be? Well, meat, obviously. You know.
Until we know better.
Interesting. So now I've seen conflicting data that says the opposite, right? It says there's people talking about how plant-based diet is causing these things. Have you seen any of that data, and what do you say to that?
Look. I don't know. I'm talking about lifestyle heart trial, published by Dr. Dean Ornish, July 21st,
Dr. Dean Ornish,
in the most prestigious medical journal in the world. I mean, what?
Sure. 1990 was 28 years ago, right?
Exactly.
Maybe we've evolved
exactly. Right. I mean, so we've known for decades. We have the cure to the number one reason you and your loved ones will die. Yet hundreds of thousands of people continue to die. That's preventable, arrestable, reversible condition.
What's the number one reason that we're going to die?
Heart disease.
And
heart disease in the United States.
You're going to draw a direct
The number one cause of death is being born.
correlation between animal products and heart disease?
if the diet that reverses heart disease.
Well, that's not the case. So whether or not the veganism can reverse it, are you going to draw a direct correlation between animal products contributing to it or causing it? Because that's effectively what you're saying.
You don't see the connection? I mean, you don't. So, I mean, so I'm not even saying, I mean, it's even a higher burden of proof. Not saying preventing, even arresting. I'm saying this diet is so powerful, you can reverse heart disease, meaning you have heart disease and you can just change that, randomize people to a whole food plant-based diet, and you can not just stop the disease.
So if you say the same thing again, but louder, it makes it more true, guys, just so you know.
You can reverse the disease.
If you say it 3 times louder, it makes it super true.
What else do you need?
And if you give a giggle at the end of it, it really gives much more authority to what you're saying and much more weight behind the words.
Well, in an ideal world, you don't create it, right? And you wonder that.
Okay. I mean, you'd have to somehow.
Okay. The soy is just oozing from Gregor right now. I don't think has he ever been challenged? Has like anybody ever told him like, well, maybe that's not exactly true. Maybe we need to look at this with a little bit more of a nuanced viewpoint. Maybe we need to discuss some of the ins and outs of the mechanisms and actually what's going on here and what we actually know. Well, yeah, you know, Dean Ornish, you know. Feels triggered.
Get straight in your brain that the diet that reverses the disease, pulls the plaque out of your arteries, somehow causes it. That makes no sense.
Yeah, who knows, right?
Hey guys, producer Trevor here, interrupting this episode.
These all sorts of kind of
acid as far as causing inflammatory issues in the body. Acid is
84
acid as far as
84 on iTunes. Thank you so much for the review.
All right, so the next part's really interesting. So Pakulski,
guys, remember to send in
on the next part. Pakulski brings up phytic acid and anti-nutrients and their effect on the body, and we'll see what Dr. Gregor has to say about this.
Enjoy the episode.
What's your thought about lectins and phytic acid as far as causing inflammation?
And that was a good transition by Pakulski. He's a really good interviewer, so I'm not sure if he edited that down, if he had to calm Dr. Gregor down and let him get a glass of soy juice to really relax. But yeah, well, it seems like he just transitioned right away. He's like, we're not getting anywhere with this. This guy's just going to keep on yelling the same thing over and over again. Let's move on.
In the body.
So phytic acid is the healthiest way to get phosphate, as opposed to the phosphates in meat or added to Coca-Cola or something. Because
phytic acid is healthy.
Hyperphosphatemia, I mean high phosphate levels in the blood, associated with chronic kidney disease, all sorts of kind of negative effects. And so the way you do that is you eat phosphorus in plant form, which is phytate form, which is less bioavailable.
So for you guys who don't know about phytic acid, it's an anti-nutrient that you find in a lot of grains and legumes. Phytic acid is very detrimental to the human body. It's an anti-nutrient that blocks the absorption of nutrients such as calcium, magnesium. So phytic acid is not this health panacea as far as I'm concerned. Now, obviously, there are ins and outs of this. There are certain phytates that may have there may be some evidence suggesting that there's a correlation between people who eat higher phytates and better outcomes. Like, right, people choosing to eat whole grains might live longer than people choosing to eat, birthday cake flavored protein powder, aspartame, peanut butter cups, right? Like, but so phytic acid is something that I avoid at all costs in the diet. Phytic acid is the reason why so many people have issues with grains, nuts, legumes. They're anti-nutrients, and Gregor seems quite upset that Pakulski would even bring that up.
Those kind of spikes of phosphate in your blood. Certainly worse than meat, though, is the phosphate that's actually injected into meat or added to processed foods. But phytic acid is the healthiest. I mean, so there's been this, 50 years ago, there was this thought that somehow phytic acid prevents.
Does Dr. Gregor walk down the road like that? Lurching? Someone in the chat said Dr. Gregor looks like a human slinky. I bet he dances really well. I want to see Dr. Gregor after a couple glasses of wine. I mean, Dr. Gregor would probably be really fun to have a couple glasses of wine with, though, right? He's probably really fun. I mean, listen how exuberant he is right here, just in this podcast. Imagine Dr. Greger after a couple classes. Right? That'd be fun.
Absorption, based on laboratory animal studies, but now we know that it's not true. I mean, and it hasn't been true for decades. And anyone,
we do have definitive data on that.
Oh, well, yeah, we have human data that high phosphate consumption is actually associated with greater bone health, which is kind of a proxy for at least calcium mineral status. And in fact, phytic acid, so I have a bunch of videos on nutritionfacts.org on phytic acid. You type in phytate, pull up suggesting high phytic acid levels associated with lower risk of cancer, presumably because where do you find phytates? Whole grains and legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, some of the healthiest foods on the planet.
Talk to me about the belief or the thought process, and it seems general population, that grains are bad for you.
Oh, well, because refined grains are terrible for you. And that's how most people get their grains. So white flour, because particularly white flour products where you're not only removing the fiber, but you're actually chopping it down so finely, it gets absorbed so quickly in your system, you actually get this big spike in blood sugars, which is really unphysiological. We were never meant to get kind of carbs separated out from fiber like that, and certainly never kind of pulverized like that. High spike in blood sugars, then that leads to the spike in insulin, release of triglycerides as our blood sugar kind of bottoms out and actually dips below fasting. Whereas, and same thing. So, for example, you eat table sugar, that's what happens. But if you eat the exact same amount of sugar in berry form, you don't get that excessive spike in blood sugar. You don't get the triglycerides. You don't get the excessive insulin release. You don't get that hypoglycemic.
Okay, so going on, kind of sprinkling some words in there, basically saying we don't even know what's going on here. We're just looking at epidemiology.
Yep. Because you're eating your carbohydrates, your sugars and starches in whole food form. And so if people just ate, sweet potatoes and whole intact grains and fruit, then we wouldn't run into the three things that are associated with refined carbs. And that's increased liver fat, like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, increase in triglycerides, which is basically fat in the blood, as well as increase in blood pressure, which is probably the number one risk factor for death on the planet Earth.
Dr. Greger, talk to me about gluten and implications in vegetarianism for gluten. Do you avoid it, or is it something you just don't care about? And what's your thoughts with that?
I do not have celiac disease, which is I happen to be one of the 142 out of 143 Americans that does not have celiac disease. I'm also one of the 999 out of 1,000 people that do not have a formal wheat allergy. Nor am I the 1% that has a non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And so for 48 out of kind of 98 out of 198% of people, 49 out of 50 people that doesn't have some kind of sensitivity or allergy to wheat, it's a perfectly healthy plant protein like all other plant proteins. However, if you have celiac disease, you can actually cut your life short by including sources of gluten such as wheat, barley, and rye in your diet. So it's
okay. So he just brushed over the whole thing. Oh, well, gluten is totally fine if you don't have celiac disease. There have been many studies. I don't even want to pull it up right now, but a lot of people. It has been shown in many studies that people who are non-celiac still have gluten sensitivity. There's such thing as non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and it might not be due to the gluten. I talked to Dr. Stephanie Seneff years ago. Gluten might not be the problem. What we're looking at is foods that are loaded with glyphosate. All right, so the wheat might not be the problem. Perhaps it's all the freaking glyphosate that is drenching these crops. A way to muddy the water there too, Mr. McGregor, Dr. McGregor.
Symptoms, you can get tested and find out if you actually have celiac disease. It's like peanut allergies.
It's not like peanut allergies. So many people have sensitivities to grains and gluten, and when they just pull the wheat from the diet, when they pull the soy from the diet, when they pull these shitty, low-quality processed junk foods from the diet, and I know Greger talks about whole wheat, right? He talks about whole grains, or whole unrefined foods. Dr. Greger's daily dozen, daily dozen, he talks about this, which is good. Good on him for talking about a whole foods-based diet. I don't see Dr. Greger out there shilling for Beyond Meat. I don't see him out there shilling for lab-grown meat and these shitty-ass foods. That's good. But he definitely seems to be mucking up the water quite a bit here. And I don't know if he's being intellectually dishonest or if he's just so deeply entrenched in his ideology and he's so used to people telling him that he's brilliant and amazing and is going to save the world. But, pride can really mess with a man.
Eat a peanut and literally drop dead. Are peanuts bad for you? They're bad for that poor sucker. Right, but does that mean that the peanuts are bad for everybody else? No, it's just that some people are sensitive.
Seems that there's quite a bit of data that verifies gluten causing leaky gut and causing direct inflammation. Any thoughts on inflammation leading to disease?
You look at show me a study where they put people on whole wheat, which has lots of gluten, and so their inflammatory markers go up. Doesn't happen. Put people on whole grains, including whole wheat, inflammatory markers like CRP, like IGF-1, pick your inflammatory marker, they go down. Whole grains are anti-inflammatory, and anyone who says otherwise gets their information from the internet rather than the peer-reviewed scientific medical literature.
Ooh, there you go. So just if you don't agree with me, you're foolish, and you get your information from the internet rather than peer-reviewed scientific studies. So Dr. Greger's whole shtick is, I read the studies, so you don't have to. So his whole thing, his whole business plan is about using the internet to brainwash people into believing what he's saying and to pushing his agenda, using the internet to push his viewpoint on people. All right? Make sure there's light here. Using the internet to push his viewpoint on people. Yet he says, well, if you don't agree with me, then you're getting bad information from the internet. Dude, that's what you do. You put out information on the internet and you say, I read the studies, so you don't have to. All right? He probably says that at the beginning of this video. Let's see.
Hello, this is Dr. Michael Greger coming to you live from my treadmill, as I do every month to answer any burning questions you may have. You may notice the background's a little different. That's because I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. For those of you unfamiliar with my work, every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world so busy folks like you don't have to, and then compile the most interesting, most groundbreaking, most practical findings into new videos and articles I upload every day to my nonprofit site, nutritionfacts.org. Everything.
So there you go. What I do is I read the studies so you don't have to. So you could just get on the internet, nutritionfacts.org, and read my website. Nonprofit. Come on, dude. Nonprofit. He sells consultations. In fact, many former clients, not many, but several former clients of mine who were vegan, by several, I mean 2, have showed me the plans that Dr. Greger sent to them, which I'm not going to divulge because they told me not to. Both of them, it was pretty ridiculous. And they asked him simple questions like, why am I gaining weight? Why are my inflammatory markers going up? And why am I seeming to be losing hair and having major thyroid issues with this diet you gave me? And the response from Dr. Greger, which basically is Dr. Greger's team, the response from his team is, oh, well, that probably has something to do with an autoimmune condition that's not diet related. Well, this autoimmune condition that wasn't diet related completely went away when both of these people got off of those diets they were doing. So yeah, funny. So let's go back to the podcast.
Interesting. How about sarcopenia? Obviously, there's some concern in long term that maybe there's some protein deficiencies in elderly people and people who follow a vegetarian style diet.
Well, I mean, I'm not aware of that data, but certainly, I mean, sarcopenia in general is an issue. And the most important thing you do is weight-bearing exercise, resistance exercise, to maintain your muscle mass. And it's possible that our protein needs go up. The Institute of Medicine disagrees, but there's data to suggest that maybe we should go from 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram body weight up to 0.9 or even 1 gram over, age 60 or so.
Mm-hmm. And where do you recommend people get that if they're following a vegetarian diet?
That's actually,
well, they should get it.
That's about half of the amount of protein that will maximize muscle protein synthesis when training, right? So you need about 0.8 grams per pound of your lean body mass, not per kilogram, right? So the protein recommendations are vastly underrepresented. So protein deficiency is very, very rampant in the Western world, especially as all these plant-based diets become more popular. So he's quite triggered by this. Ben Pakulski, again, asking very good questions, asking them very respectfully to Dr. Bobblehead, and Gregor doesn't like that question. And he sees where he's going with this, so let's see how he answers.
Healthiest possible source of protein, and that's plant protein. Anyone who doesn't know how to get protein on a plant-based diet doesn't know beans. So legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils, these are plant protein superstars. So you have all the stuff that you want out of protein-rich foods: iron, zinc, high-quality protein, plus, and all the stuff you don't want. None of the stuff you don't want, like the saturated fat and hormones and cholesterol, etc. Plus, you get the bonus. You get all the stuff in the vegetable kingdom: the fiber, the folate, potassium, all that stuff missing from those animal source proteins. So food is a package deal. It's very important, I think, for listeners to.
So I mean, there's so much misinformation here. You don't even know where to stop, right? It's like a bobblehead machine just spitting out vegan propaganda. So I just remembered. All right, as far as the gluten thing. And I mentioned the glyphosate issue, right? Like the issue might not be so much the gluten, but it might be the glyphosate. Gluten, actually opens up the tight junctions in our gut and creates gut permeability issues, which Pakulski very intelligently and very kindly brought up, and Gregor totally pushes it under the rug. So gluten, it's not just that if you're celiac, you got to avoid gluten. It can create leaky gut issues in people who are non-celiac as well. So this is pretty over the top that he says that. But then, man, I mean, this guy's going to say that plant proteins are the best forms of protein. There's not one plant in the world that has a complete amino acid profile, right? You got to mix the legumes with the rice. Rice and beans together, a plant protein, a complete protein. It's like most people don't even know this, right? Now, when I was doing a vegan not a vegetarian, but a vegan diet, we knew that rice and beans together, combined, would make supposedly a complete protein. But man, how much of this is actually digestible? How much of it's assimilable? You're also missing out on so many of the fat-soluble vitamins, which this guy's not talking about at all. Vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin K2. These are crucial. He talks about cholesterol as if it's bad. Cholesterol is ubiquitous throughout the entire human body. Your body makes loads of cholesterol every day. We need that cholesterol, we require it. So this is kind of over the top.
As much as Burger King says has it your way, you can't go be like, yeah, I'd like the burger, hold the saturated fat, hold the cholesterol, hold the heme iron, etc. No, it all comes back together. So yes, pork has protein. Dairy has calcium. Steak has meat. Steak has iron, etc. Excuse me. But if instead you get your calcium from low oxalate dark green leafy vegetables, right? Then not only are you missing out on the stuff that you don't want, like saturated butterfat, but you get all the bonus stuff that you're not finding in your dairy sources of calcium, like the iron. Fiber, etc. So, since food comes as a package deal, I mean, the food industry loves breaking down things into nutrients. Then they can sell you Fruit Loops supplemented with vitamin D or something like that. But we should get our nutrients from whole foods.
Where are you going to
do that? Where are you going to get?
Where are you going to get vitamin D from plant foods, Gregor? He talks about Fruit Loops, supplementing vitamin D with Fruit Loops. Fortify your Fruit Loops with vitamin D. What vegetable has vitamin D? Dr. Gregor. I'm not sure. In Dr. Gregorium's Wonder Emporium, I don't know where you're going to get vitamin D, which you just referenced, getting from Whole Foods. Where are you going to get this on a vegan diet? Now, fatty fish will have a significant amount of vitamin D. Meats certain cuts of meats can provide some vitamin D. Vitamin D in plants doesn't exist, dude. It doesn't exist.
And that's why you go to Harvard School of Public Health website, best source of protein, plant sources of protein. And so that's legumes, but also whole grains, nuts, and seeds. There's protein found throughout the plant kingdom.
Are you familiar with any current data that implicates saturated fat as being correlated with heart disease?
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
No, I'm being honest. I've seen everything that says
COCHRANE, the Cochrane Collaborative Group. That is the.
Where are they based?
So He yells and he spells a word. Therefore, it's true.
Excuse me?
Where are they based?
It's an international group. They basically came up with this concept of evidence-based medicine. They are considered the most unbiased. They're actually a little current controversy now about the HPV vaccine. But before this latest controversy,
they are the most
there may be some
unbiased.
vaccine money on some of the research. But before that, they were considered the most unbiased.
Considered by who? It's just declared they're the most unbiased. Who says this? You just get to declare this and make it true? How do you know they are so unbiased? All right, Pakulski's handling it well, and I like how triggered Gregor gets at the questions. This must have been a funny. I wonder how this came about. This is really funny.
Somebody tarnished their reputation.
Before, and it's actually still controversial. So there's a researcher whose school got money from a vaccine. So whether he actually got money or his lab or was just part of an academic institution that got money from a vaccine. Anyway, but there's no.
Someone in the chat mentioned mushrooms. There you go. You are allowed to eat mushrooms. Supposedly, some mushrooms can have some vitamin D in them. Paul Stamets says that if you leave some mushrooms upside down out in the sun, you dry them out in the sun, that they can actually produce some vitamin D. So good point there. There is a non-animal food, a fungal food that you can get vitamin D from. Totally forgot about that. Well
if you're interested in evidence, if you're interested in the science, then considered the most unbiased source is the Cochrane Group, and Cochrane Group said that
still says nothing.
Lower saturated fat, lower your risk of cardiovascular disease.
So emotionally declare them unbiased. The authority, the Cochrane Group, says saturated fat causes disease. Doesn't say why. Just says, well, the Cochrane Group says. These people who I say have authority, the most authoritative, the least biased. You know, you say, saturated fat causes cancer. You know, let's just move on. You know. We need some legumes, you know?
Because all the recent data we see says
they update every 5 years.
So now Yin Yang says vitamin D2 is what's made in the mushrooms. Now, I didn't know that. That's interesting. David, what's up, man? David throwing $10 to the super chat. Chucking shekels. And the super chat says good evening. Thanks, bud. Doesn't even have something for me to answer, just throwing it out there. Thanks a lot, man. You know, a lot of these videos that do end up getting demonetized, so it's always nice when people throw the super chats. If you want me to answer your questions, I do read the super chats.
No considerations when it comes to eating saturated fat until it's combined with high levels of glucose.
So the American Heart Association put out a presidential advisory just because of this nuttiness on the internet. They specifically put out a presidential advisory.
So presidential advisory, American Heart Association. So just more like, propagandistic appeals to these authorities, which, as we all know, are not really authorities. The American Heart Association has been highly influenced by big muddied interests since the very beginning. The American Heart Association, wasn't it started by some Seventh-day Adventists to push the low-fat diet? So he references them.
Say saturated fat causes heart disease.
Presidential advisory.
And it's interesting. The only thing people heard from that is don't eat coconut oil. But if you look at the report, they say explicitly #1 source of meat and dairy. Although I encourage people to stay away from coconut oil too. But so they had to come out and just say, look, yes, we have decades, scientific consensus on this, and anyone who says otherwise is trying to sell you a book. No one's going to buy a book that says eat broccoli. Someone will buy a book saying...
What do you mean no one's going to buy a book that says eat broccoli? Your book, How Not to Die. It's all about eating broccoli. It's all about eating fart foods. Beans and rice. Getting them legumes in. That's crazy. That's so ridiculous. So just attacking everybody. Anybody who disagrees with me, they're just idiots. You got it from the internet. You see how scared these people are? The whole house of cards is crumbling for these folks. All right. I mean, even a lot of these people. Somebody sent me another video today from another vegan YouTuber who doesn't even have his master's and his MD yet, but he's going to get his master's in nutrition, and he's going to have a PhD one day. So you're going to have to listen to him one day, and one day you're going to have to consider what he says to be the truth. So many of these people are freaking out about the carnivore crowd. Right now, I don't promote a carnivore diet for everybody. I do say that this can be a very good way of eating for many people. But we've been promoting a high-fat ketogenic diet for 5 years here. When we first started putting out information on a ketogenic diet on YouTube, and maybe it's 4 years on YouTube, who cares? When we first started putting out information on this, the mainstream view was that saturated fat is bad still, right? So back then, the keto diet was kind of how people are looking at the carnivore diet now. Now, what I see the carnivore diet as is this wedge to force the issue of people realizing that plants are non-essential, right? And this is kind of the Achilles heel of this whole plant-based movement, because you got guys like Chris Kresser who are pretty intelligent. A lot of these functional medicine docs and stuff, who they'll do organic acid tests and Great Plains oat tests, and they'll be they'll give you some supplements to help you heal your gut. You take the natural antibiotics and instead of the pharmaceutical ones. And a lot of these people do help some people out. But many of them are also running on the assumption that plants are necessary for health. Plants are the best foods for humans. But the carnivore crowd sticks a needle right through the little membrane of that bubble that they're riding on and bursts it. And basically you're showing that so many people are doing very, very well without the legumes, without these crappy, low nutrition, high fiber foods that we only would want to eat in a famine. Like, these are foods that if my kitchen is stocked, right? If our kitchen is stocked up with everything our kids want, which it usually is, except we don't bother buying many like big leafy green vegetables anymore. We've got some greens in the garden. We mostly give to the chickens. But our children will naturally select the fatty meats. They want to eat liver. They ask for foods like marrow. They ask for foods like brain. And they ask for steaks before they're asking for sweet foods, bananas, right? They'd rather have steak than their like healthy banana ice cream, which Jessica makes a banana ice cream. She'll take heavy cream and she'll blend it up with bananas and sometimes put a little bit of some spices in it, a little bit of cinnamon for the kids. And they like it, but they prefer the fatty cuts of meat, because when we are given all the foods out on a platter, most people understand at the basic level of just, the basic primal level, that animal foods are the most satiating, nourishing, and essential foods for human health. And these people are freaking out. They're really freaking out that so many people are questioning these assumptions and they're questioning these ideologues. It's really sad, because I hope that people like Dr. Greger and some of these other vegan YouTubers find the health that they're selling you on. I hope they find it. And there is no perfect health. The human body is in an environment that is not perfectly healthy, right? We're affected by things like light exposure. That's what we've been talking about, circadian rhythms over the years, sun exposure. Remember, we used to always talk about go rub your balls on the sun, right? You want to increase your testosterone? Rub your damn balls on the sun. Get your balls out in that natural sunlight. Red light, the red frequencies of light and near infrared frequencies of light can boost testosterone levels. We miss out on this stuff when we're fully clothed all the time. That's why I'm always making my videos outside in the sun. That's why I barely ever wear clothing when I don't have to, right? There are other things other than diet that we need to be focusing on. But so many of these ideologues are out there just focusing on the one thing, the one silver bullet, the vegan diet or the keto diet or the carnivore diet. I'll be the first one to tell you, these people are lost. Right? First of all, your health is not just determined by what you eat physically, right? What we consume through our eyes, through our ears, the bullshit we take in, the environmental factors around us. If you're in shitty relationships, unhealthy relationships, these can take a toll on your immune system as well. And it's not just because we're physical beings, right? There's the physical man and then there's the hidden man. We're not just a physical being. We're not just a body. We're not just matter, consuming matter, becoming part of matter. We have things like reason. We have things like logic that exist outside of the physical limitations of the body. And there are things like objective truth that exist. All right, so first of all, health is not just about what you eat. Second of all, there's no silver diet bullet that's going to help everybody out that's perfect for everybody. But all human beings do require animal foods, unless you're going to be heavily supplementing with things like zinc, iron, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin K2, vitamin B12. A lot of these nutrients, many vegans are completely missing out on in their diet. And it's unfortunate. All right. But there's all these snake oil salesmen out there. Dr. Greger, this is the snake oil sale. You're going to live forever. Live forever. How not to die. Who's the first snake oil salesman? He shall surely not die. You shall become as gods. Right? You got the transhumanist movement. You guys got dorks like Dave Asprey taking 100 pills a day thinking he's going to live to 180. You got people talking about melding the human body with machines, becoming a part of these integrated networks, right? Becoming, basically becoming human cyborgs that will live forever. This is the classic snake oil sales. The Rockefeller family was started by a snake oil salesman. John D. Rockefeller's father was one of the original snake oil salesmen. Right? The history of the Rockefeller family is just fascinating. Right? And when you actually look at where the modern medical system comes from, it is all from Rockefeller funding, from the Rockefeller Foundation funding. We're heavily involved in the Seventh-day Adventist groups, heavily involved with guys like Kellogg, and all these little dweebs running around telling you to stop eating meat can't handle any questions. They can't handle any of the real questions. And they contradict themselves constantly, as we see here with Gregor. But let's listen to some more. Ben Pakulski doing a really good job with this interview. Shout out to the massive Jack Ben Pakulski. Maybe I'll have to see if Ben will come on or stream sometime. If anybody knows how to get a hold of Ben. Actually, I know a few people who know him, so maybe I'll reach out and see if I can get Ben Pakulski to come over here. And I know he's been using low carb keto diets off and on for body composition and for health, especially in the off season. But he's so big, man. I mean, that he's must weigh 300 pounds in the off season, walking around. Who knows if that's even possible to maintain on a ketogenic diet, on a whole foods keto diet. He's probably having to eat some of these processed foods just to get enough calories in to maintain that weight. But Ben Pakulski doing a really good job with this interview. Intelligent guy, bringing some nuance to the conversation, which, Dr. Gregor, I'm not really so happy with the nuance being brought to the conversation, because the authorities, the World Health Organization, say that if you don't believe me, you believe in the flat earth, and you're getting your information from the internet, and you're stupid.
Here's good news about your bad habit. Eat bacon, you'll be healthy. Unfortunately, it's killing people.
Can you bring me water?
So short of processed meats, your belief is that all animal products are bad for health?
Oh, no. Look, when you ask whether something's good or bad, the question is compared to what,
sure.
Right? Food has an opportunity cost. Every time you put something in your mouth, it's a lost opportunity to put something healthier in your mouth. Sure. So are eggs good for you?
Just like every time something comes out of your mouth, it's a lost opportunity to have something worth fucking listening to come out of your fucking mouth. Dr. Bobblehead.
Compared to a breakfast link sitting next to it, absolutely. Compared to oatmeal, not even close. Is fish good for you? Compared to what? Compared to lard? Yes. Compared to kidney beans? No. Right? And it's like,
kidney beans. What's the oxalate content in kidney beans? Let's see the oxalate content. One serving will exceed 50 milligrams. All these beans loaded with oxalate. How many vegans and vegetarians do you know that have had kidney stones? How many vegans and vegetarians do you know that understand that oxalate toxicity and that oxalates in general are what cause kidney stones? Or one of the primary causes of kidney stones, especially vegans and vegetarians. It's just ridiculous. So kidney beans are healthier than fish.
Is meat good for you? Compared to what? What are you going to have instead of that meat? Compared to sewer sludge, it's wonderful. Compared to, whole plant foods, again, it's not even in the same category. So I have a traffic light system in terms of how I think about categorizing food. Green light foods, maximize as much as possible. You stuff in your faces are whole plant foods. Yellow light foods are the animal foods. So minimize on a daily basis animal foods and processed plant foods. And then there's the red light foods. These are the ultra processed foods, as well as processed animal products like processed meat.
Hey,
and look, it doesn't matter what you eat.
Who here has ever accidentally eaten undercooked beans? Has anybody here ever accidentally undercooked beans and eaten them? You guys know what I'm talking about. You eat some of these raw beans you're going to have a bad time.
Holiday special occasions, right? This is not some like...
Look, we got someone in the chat right now who got kidney stones as a vegan. You know, and did anybody tell you about the dangers of oxalate toxicity and tell you that over 50 milligrams of oxalate can cause major problems in many people? If you get over 50 milligrams of oxalate per day, many people run into super hardcore issues like kidney stones, major gut dysbiosis issue, mood issues as well. Nobody told you that. These people aren't telling you the truth. These people are ideologues. These people don't even care about the truth. They care about appearing right? They care about looking like they're correct.
Religious, I was actually raised Jewish, but I have no like religious like against pork or not some, you know, these vegans that care about the environment or and this like, and they have this kind of magical thinking when it comes to a little bit of animal products. Look, from a health standpoint, I'm a physician. What I care about is people living longer, healthier lives. Doesn't matter what you eat in your birthday, holiday, special occasions, but on a day-to-day basis. In fact, you could smoke a cigarette on your birthday. Right? I mean, the only reason I tell my patients not to smoke at all is because one cigarette could lead to two, could lead to a pack-a-day habit, right? But, but look, if you're a social smoker, smoke a few cigarettes at a party once a year and never become hooked, show me any data that's worse than completely non-smoking.
All right, so Dr. Greger almost spilling the beans that when he gets drunk, he likes to try and look cool and smoke a cigarette. I can just see Dr. Greger, like a few glasses of wine, walking around the party. Hey, you want to give me one of those cigarettes, dude? Right? Dr. Greger, casual smoker, thinks he looks cool smoking a cigarette after a couple beers.
Doesn't exist. Your body can bounce back from that, can heal. So similarly, as long as you're not stabbing yourself with a fork 3 times a day, our body has a remarkable capacity to heal from insults. But on a day-to-day basis, in terms of centering our diets around the healthiest possible foods, it should be, my daily dozen list of foods. I have a free app called Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen.
Anybody who's trying to tell you that saturated fat is bad, they're trying to sell you on a book. Yeah, By the way, buy my book, How Not to Die. Go to my website. Check out my app. Come on, man. Dude, there's nothing wrong with selling stuff, but to say that, well, anybody who disagrees with me is trying to sell you a lie. Well, you're selling a bunch of bullshit, and you dance around every single question. Well, I don't even remember what the question that he asked was. He just went off on this tirade. You smoke a cigarette every once in a while. It's cool. You look cool. Chicks like it. I put my tongue in some lady's mouth after I smoked a cigarette at a party one time in New York.
All the foods I encourage people to fit on a daily basis. And
could you share those with us?
Yeah. Again, free iPhone, Android. So I encourage people to eat beans every day, dark green leafy vegetables, the healthiest types of vegetables, berries every day, the healthiest types of fruits, a quarter teaspoon of turmeric, tablespoon of ground flax seeds, the best kind of beverages, how much exercise I encourage people to get every day, et cetera. So it just goes down the list. Again, just try to inspire people to include some of the healthiest of healthy choices.
I'm inspired.
Now, could you speak to me about
inspired. So, imagine if Ben Pakulski took his advice, stopped eating meat, and started eating beans to maintain his lean body mass. There's Ben Pakulski off season. It's so freaking huge. That is so massive. Look at his legs. He can't even walk. They're so big. Like he's got to walk like these tree stumps carrying around. Massive. Imagine if he was eating beans and rice, kidney beans and lentils to maintain that. Like he probably gets like 300 grams plus of protein per day. He's got to have at least 300 grams of protein per day. Dude's probably eating. Imagine if that was all beans. Imagine the flatulence.
In the consideration that there's been some correlation between irritable bowel disease and high amounts of fiber and vegetarian consumptions?
Oh, well, certainly. So if you have, I can imagine if you have irritable bowel and you have dysbiosis, you have some bad bugs in your gut, and you feed those bad bugs with, lots of fiber-resistant starch, you could get an increase in gastrointestinal symptoms.
Yeah, if you have leaky gut symptoms, like everybody today, we're all exposed to things like glyphosate. We're all raised on loads of gluten. We're all eating loads of these anti-nutrients. If you're like most people in the world who have gut dysbiosis issues and digestive troubles, come on,
The
buddy.
answer to that is not to avoid healthy foods. The answer to that is to reestablish a good gut flora. And that can be done typically through diet, although if it's because of antibiotic use that wiped out your good gut flora, you may want to do kind of a certain time-limited probiotic regimen. But those are kind of in rare clinical cases. Typically, if you just feed your gut flora these prebiotics, fiber-resistant starch, you should be able to reestablish a good gut flora. And maybe one of these days we'll be doing fecal transplants and stuff, and you can, sell your good poop on the black market or something. But right now, we're restricted to.
So who here wants a fecal microbiota transplant from Dr. Greger? Right? Or any of these proponents of the plant-based diets that we see out there. I mean, I can't think of a single example of somebody who's thriving with it. People talk about like Rich Roll. I mean, I don't know. I'm not seeing the results out there. I'm not seeing the vitality. But he wants you to live forever. You shall surely not die. You'll be as gods. You'll live forever. You could be transhumanist vegans. Trans vegans. I mean, I actually am. I can make fun of vegans, guys, just so you know. Just putting this out there. I can make fun of vegans because I am trans vegan. Right? I'm not really vegan, but I do identify as one when it suits me.
More savory means.
Do you have any thoughts about anemia as it correlates to veganism?
So iron deficiency. So there's lots of ways you can get anemia.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can bleed through your industrial tract.
Iron deficiency.
Okay, but iron deficiency anemia. So the biggest concern is reproductive age women. Vegan and vegetarian women do not have higher rates of iron deficiency anemia than meat-eating women. Having said that, the rates are terrible across the board. So as many as 15%.
Perhaps due to all the anti-nutrients we're eating. Perhaps due to the processed foods people are eating. Dr. Greger acts like most vegans actually go on a nutrient-dense, whole foods vegan diet. They don't. Most vegans are eating shit. Most vegans are eating vegan cookies. They're eating soy. Right? They're eating these super, super high anti-nutrient foods.
Both meat-eating and vegan women have iron deficiency anemia, typically due to excessive monthly blood loss, and so for them, it's important to maximize their iron absorption. Something I would not recommend for men because they tend to deal with more iron overload diseases. But for reproductive age women across the board, I encourage them to get the healthiest source of iron, which is plant-based iron, just because again, food is a package deal, along with vitamin C in your stomach at the same time as those iron-rich foods, and so not with a pill.
What were your recommendations for that? Is that
for
legumes
vitamin
again?
C, so we're talking citrus fruits, tropical fruits, broccoli, bell peppers. These are the healthiest for us, and so it just has to be in your stomach at the same time as a plant-based iron, and that'll maximize your iron absorption. Also, you want to avoid iron blockers like tea with your meals. I encourage people to drink tea between meals because it inhibits the absorption of iron.
What are the greatest drawbacks you see with a vegan diet?
Oh, vitamin B12, definitely. So there's two vitamins you can't get that aren't made by plants. One is vitamin D, which is made by animals such as yourself. When you walk outside, and especially here in Phoenix, where I am now, get all the vitamin D you need. But if you live inside all day, doesn't matter what latitude you're at, you need to get vitamin D somewhere. So I recommend 2,000 international units of vitamin D3 a day, if indeed you're not getting enough midday sun. And the only other vitamin not made by plants, ideally we should get all our nutrients from the produce aisle rather than the supplement aisle. But the only other vitamin not made by plants is vitamin B12, not made by animals either, made by little microbes that blanket the earth.
All right, what's a good source of zinc on a vegan diet? What's a good source of iron on a vegan diet? Right, if we're not taking into account the anti-nutrient contents of these foods too, and the nutrient absorption rates when you're eating these highly anti-nutrient dense diets, you probably aren't going to be absorbing a lot of these nutrients you're eating. Right? I mean, foods like spinach are loaded with anti-nutrients.
So, yeah,
I like spinach. I like how it tastes. I like steamed spinach with butter and salt. I don't find myself eating it anymore. It's a very high oxalate food, so if people have oxalate sensitivities, you're going to want to avoid spinach. I'm not saying spinach is bad inherently, right? Yeah, what's up, Carnival? Carnival says green leafy vegetables equals iron blockers. Exactly. Eat lots of green leafy vegetables. You're not going to have an iron deficiency. You know?
get B12 from drinking out of a
I love how every time I make fun of his as soon as I start again, count how many seconds from when I start, he says,
stream or well water or something, but now we chlorinate the water supply. So we don't get a lot of B12 in our water anymore. Don't get a lot of cholera either. That's a good thing that we live in a nice sanitary world. But because we do, you need to get a regular, reliable source of vitamin B12. Critically important for anyone consuming a plant-based diet. All right.
That's a myth, too. There was no B12 in water. There's no B12 in freaking water. Oh, we should just drink water for B12 when we were vegans back in the imaginary past that I'm inventing right now. And the paleo crowd is just as guilty of inventing imaginary past anthropologies, right? Like, oh, this is what we were eating then. We know that because we found the bones. And I mean, both sides are guilty of this, kind of idolizing these fake hypothetical past histories and making up the ideal diet based on that. But dude, B12 in water? Like, all right, so we have spring water here. We've got, very good water supply that comes from high up in the mountains, high up in these national parks. Guarantee there's not a freaking single unit of B12 in any of the water here. This is nonsense. You weren't getting B12 from your kale. Thousands of years ago, we were just getting B12 from kale. We'd pick the kale and it would still have some dirt, and we'd drink our water, and there's your B12 right there. Like we're obviously herbivores.
Probably 2,500 micrograms of cyanocobalamin, the cheapest form, once a week. Get all the B12 you need. Costs about $5 a year.
Just pill form, you think? No food?
Pill
no
form.
Food
Oh, yeah, there's B12 fortified foods, but they're typically processed foods. Like you don't want to, eat Fruit Loops just so you can get your vitamin B12.
That's the Fruit Loops narrative. This guy kind of is. I don't know, man. What do you think? You guys think Dr. Greger's an authority on health and fitness?
I would encourage you to watch my arsenic videos and make up your own mind in terms of how much rice exposure you want to get. And then the oatmeal. So yeah, there's been some press reports talking about glyphosate, kind of the active ingredient, the pesticide in Monsanto's Roundup.
Mm-hmm. It's all over all these foods you recommend.
I haven't looked at it
It's
yet.
all over all the foods he recommends. So all these foods, even like chia seed, which it's not GMO, it's not genetically modified to be Roundup resistant. Same with wheat. Wheat is not GMO. Wheat, they use glyphosate as a desiccant to dry out and kill the plants at the end because it cheapens the harvest process. Right? Crazy, right? So now here he is having to reconcile with people actually waking up to the fact that glyphosate is on all these freaking foods. All these foods. How many vegan representatives of this, the plant-based diet do we see out there talking about glyphosate? Not very many. In fact, the last person I saw make a negative comment about glyphosate, and I'll give him credit, Vegan Gains. Richard actually said something in a video a clip that I saw. He said something about glyphosate contamination in a lot of the foods that we eat being a major issue. And I'm not saying that, he's a great authority on health anyway either, but hey, shout out to Richard, the Vegan Gains, for actually talking about the glyphosate issue, which, Gregor seems like he's trying to dodge it here. But let's go back to the Pakulski. My challenge, of course, let's see how long it takes for him to say,
processed foods like nutritional yeast, etc. But probably the easiest, simplest, cheapest, a supplement once a week. But I'm so glad you brought that up. Critically important for anyone eating plant-based, even someone that has meat occasionally or over-lacto, etc.
Interesting. So now for any vegans out there who are listening who lack energy and seem to lack vitality and vigor, what do you think the biggest cause of it?
For any vegans out there listening, I think he meant all. No, I'm kidding. I'm sure there's some vegans out there who feel good or doing well. I actually do know some vegans that seemingly in better health than a lot of the vegans that we see, promoting it on YouTube and stuff. But I mean, come on. How many people are taking this advice, eating lots of beans and legumes and feeling great?
A supplement once a week. But I'm so glad you brought that up. Critically important for anyone eating plant-based, even someone that has meat occasionally or over-lacto, etc.
Interesting. So now for any vegans out there who are listening who lack energy and seem to lack vitality and vigor, what do you think the biggest cause of that is? Seems to be a common complaint.
Right. Well, no, I mean, if you look at the literature, actually the reverse happens. So, for example, all the PCRM studies put people on plant-based diet within 2 weeks.
We had one,
improvement in.
I agree with that, but long-term it seems to go down.
Oh, well, so, I mean, that.
My studies don't say that. My studies say that. My Seventh-day Adventist studies say that vegans live long and they're so strong. My studies, I
mean, there are certainly people that run into problems with energy. In my practice, primarily what I've seen is people aren't eating enough food. They're actually eating starvation diets if you actually do calorie counts on them, because people grow up just realizing a certain amount of food on a plate, that's supper. Like they look down the plate, this much food is supper. You can't do that if you're eating plant-based. Whole food plant-based, healthy foods are so calorically dilute. You eat the same amount of food, you're not getting enough calories. So you have to eat more food. I mean, that's critically important. I mean, I may get these people eating really calorically dense foods like dried fruits, nut butters, avocados, these kind of things. Really just have to increase their calorie counts. Because if you do these calorie counts, they say, I'm eating enough. I feel totally full. Yeah, but we actually pulled your calories. You're eating, 1,100 calories a day. With some of these people that are on...
they're just not eating enough beans and legumes. They're not eating enough phytic acid,
It's like starvation diets. No wonder you have no energy. You're not eating enough energy. So you have to give them like trail mix, that kind of thing. Eat throughout the day, bigger meals, go back for seconds. And then their energy bounces back up. I mean, but that's typically the main problem.
Do you recommend people eat this way year-round, Dr. Greger? Even people living in the poles where they're not going to experience as much sunshine and maybe wouldn't have as much fruits and vegetables grown there historically?
They wouldn't have any. I mean, look, these people can't even get medicine. Correct. So I mean, if you could airdrop them some food, then be great. But,
so I'm talking the northern United States. I'm talking Canada, Northern Europe, where they're not going to get as much sunshine. It's much colder. They're not going to be growing, like historically wouldn't be growing their vegetables in the middle of the winter time.
But now we got supermarkets. So I can get kiwi fruit, from freaking other side of the planet year round. I mean, your physiology doesn't change because you change your latitude.
Isn't that a funny thing? Language is so dumbed down these days. People will say such incoherent things. The way that we all use like is really annoying too. I catch myself all the time saying like, but to say no, yeah, it's almost a glitch. No, yeah. Reboot. No, yeah. We all say this. I'm not saying it's just Dr. Greger. We all have these poor language skills these days due to the dumbed down media education system. I mean, language is being systematically destroyed. That's part of controlling human populace.
Everybody eats this way. So I mean, ideally, even for the Inuit, who live at the pole, not that they could eat this way, but that would be the healthiest thing. I mean, fruits and vegetables don't get unhealthy just because you can't find them in the local supermarket. But obviously, that's a real logistical challenge. But it's not a nutritional issue; it's a logistical issue.
Do you think there's any genetic considerations where people are coming from evolutionarily?
Oh, very slight. So, for example, I was just doing an interview with somebody talking about the Hispanic paradox, the fact that why do Hispanics live so many years longer than non-Hispanic Caucasians, for example, in the United States? And, you go through all the diseases. And so, for example, they have lower melanoma rates, skin cancer, but they also have darker skin. So that's kind of a genetic component, and that darker skin does protect us from UV rays, lowers your skin cancer rates. But other than that, really kind of across the board, when you look at acculturation, The more Hispanics eat and live like Americans, the more they die from American diseases. And so, it's really, that's how we know that it's not genetics. It's because we have these migration studies. And look, you do these randomized control studies where you put people on different diets and you can reverse their disease no matter where they come from. But disease rates range like 100-fold, some of these chronic diseases around the world. And we know it's not genetics because when you move, so when a Japanese man moves from Japan to San Francisco and starts eating and living like a San Franciscan, their stomach cancer rates drop because they're not eating all this fermented salted food. And their prostate cancer shoots through the roof because all of a sudden they're eating dairy and these other things that are facilitating the growth of those cancers. And so, environment can, there are certainly environmental effects. It's.
I don't know.
It's primarily, so genetics can kind of load the gun, environment pulls the trigger.
All right, thanks a lot. Transition point. Thanks, dude. Honestly, one of the most coherent channels on revisionist diet info. Thanks for the content. Cheers. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for throwing the $5. That's funny. Revisionist diet info. You mean denier? Diet denier. Cholesterol. I'm a cholesterol denier, huh? Saturated fat denier. Plant-based diet denier. Come on.
You can have a high genetic risk for heart disease, but that just means you have to eat healthier. So people are like, yeah, I got a family history of heart disease, so, kind of throw their hands up in the air. No, you got to eat healthier than other people. Other people can get away. They have really good genes and get away with, eating some crap once in a while. But you, oh my God, given a family history, you got to eat super healthy. So that's even more incentive to include the healthiest of healthy foods into one's daily diet.
How much do you think macros plays into someone's overall health and longevity?
Well, except at the extremes, very little. It's really the source.
Dude, come on. Except at the extremes, very little. How about, the protein leverage hypothesis? When people get sufficient protein in, they stop eating more fat and carbs. Protein's the master lever of our hunger. Protein and salt intake will determine our hunger levels. If we get enough protein, we get enough salt, we stop seeking other foods. With the wind blowing on my door shut as the sun's going down. I'm going to start wrapping this up, guys. I'm going to get a pretty sunset I got to watch outside. But let's finish this up.
And again, food industry loves macros because they'll sell you low carb junk food, high carb junk food, paleo junk food, vegan junk food, whatever, because they can just be like, oh, look at our ratio, right? As opposed to whole real food. And so, a question like, is fat good for you? Absolutely meaningless.
I'm going to do the Dr. Greger dance. I want to see Dr. Greger after a few glasses of wine, right? Walking around the party, all these yuppies in San Francisco or wherever he likes to hang out. Or he said he's in Phoenix, Arizona now. If he lives in Phoenix, Arizona, he should be getting a little bit more sun, right? Get some sunshine, dude. Phoenix, Arizona. I want to see Dr. Greger just bobbleheading around the party. Casually smoking his cigarette, awkwardly holding it like a, holding a cigarette all weird, like a joint. It's like, hey, you want to eat some legumes with me in the morning? You feel like waking up and having some warm oatmeal in the morning? I want to party with Dr. Greger. That would be fun. I don't even drink, but I'd have some drinks with Dr. Greger.
Crisco, like hydrogenated vegetable oil, or are we talking about walnuts, right? Carbohydrates. Are we talking lentils or lollipops, right? We talking kidneys or kidney beans? We talking, it's protein. So again, it's the source of those macronutrients that's most important. You can have a healthy or unhealthy high-fat diet, low-fat diet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the greatest.
Definitely agree with that. The food industry, there's so much crap being marketed to people out there. But I think what he's omitting here is that a lot of the people, all right, so if you were to look at a lot of people doing a ketogenic diet or low-carb diet, or now the ultimate heretics, the carnivore dieters, if you're to look at these people, they're eating much less processed junk food than the average vegan diet is. Oh, there's no studies, but my studies. Just look at the diet, right? You're not eating fortified foods. You're cutting out the vegetable oils. You're cutting out a lot of the junk food just by going on a ketogenic diet. And those are like even the lower quality keto diets, right? Oh, shit. Metal Slug says there's a rainbow around the moon tonight. Are you serious? Is it tonight a rainbow moon night? We'll have to see. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, I agree with Dr. Greger. You know, the processed food industry, junk food, crap. And there's so much of this stuff being marketed in low carb circles, right? Even, you know, the aggressive marketing of exogenous ketones can get kind of annoying too. But the Quest bar keto, birthday cake, protein powder Quest bar, microwave cups, you know, just bullshit food. Very few people the people that I coach are not eating these things, right? The way we teach it when we do our keto and carnivore collective, which, you know, our keto and carnivore collective, I wonder if I have a graphic. Nope, that's for the last month. The next keto and carnivore collective is starting on the 9th of December. So that's 3 weeks from now. We're halfway through our current one. But when we coach people, we're not telling them to eat junk food, right? And most of the people that come to me for coaching have already cut out most of the junk food. And they kind of intuitively know that, like, the Quest bars are probably going to have to go. You know, I mean, when they come to me, they've obviously seen some of my content when they come to me from coaching too. So they know that I'm representing a whole foods, unrefined diet based around getting maximum nutrient density, focusing on animal fats and proteins. And of course, if you want the vegetables, fine, right? Selecting specific vegetables that are going to work for your circumstances. Like if you have a sensitivity to oxalate, you don't want to be eating spinach, right? If you have a sensitivity to oxalate, you're going to want to eat a low oxalate diet. So there are nuances and stuff like that, but you know, not everybody's got to go on a low oxalate diet right away. Not everybody's even ready for that. Very few people are ready to do like a carnivorous diet. Right? It's baby steps for a lot of people. I mean, it even took me years to get to the point where I'm just like, well, why am I going to make vegetables today? Why don't I just eat some bone marrow and have a steak? All right, so we're eating very, very little processed food in this whole low carb community. Whereas in the vegan world, it's not so much the same. You have a lot of different sects within the vegan religion. You've got these people talking about whole foods vegan, which I appreciate that aspect of Dr. Greger. You've got people who are just like, it doesn't matter. It's just about the animals. Go to McDonald's and eat vegan at McDonald's. The Fortune 100 loves you, and they're going to turn the world vegan. Bill Gates is amazing. Billionaire philanthropists. They just care about our health. And you got those vegans they don't give a shit. You've got the ethical vegans who are just like, it's not about health. And if it's about health for you, you're a heretic and you were never really vegan. You got all kinds of different stuff. So, I mean, I agree with him. But, you know, a lot of people in the low-carb world are not eating a lot of junk foods, you know, and a lot of vegans, they are, you know.
A percentage of your diet, a percentage of calories in your diet coming from whole plant foods, high fat, low fat, doesn't matter.
You think that's the greatest predictor of longevity?
That's probably, and that's actually, so there's actually, that's called the phytochemical index, and there's actually studies that have looked at that. There's a bunch of it. There's also what's called a pro-vegetarian score, which just says kind of how much you're eating of plant foods versus animal foods. And so, there's all sorts of scoring systems, but basically every single one on the planet, whether you're using Harvard's scoring system or the USDA's or whatever, all comes down to basically how many whole plant foods you eat, lots of fruits and vegetables, and then you get decreased points for processed foods for most animal foods. I mean, they all really kind of come in the same Venn diagram. But you look at the blue zones around the world, the healthiest, longest living populations, they're all eating plant-centered diets, and the center, legumes. They're all getting some form of beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils. Number one dietary predictor of survival in terms of food groups.
All right, so definitely not the number one predictor of dietary survival. There are associations between people who are eating whole foods, legumes, stuff like that, the so-called Mediterranean diets, and a lot of these people that are eating significantly more of these types of foods in certain parts of the population, but this is a little bit misleading here. They're not living long just because they're eating legumes. A lot of these are rural populations who are also eating animal foods, right? Who are disconnected from like the nonsense of modernity to a certain extent. A lot of these people still have family units. They have religious beliefs, right? So they have community. These are all, a lot of these things, community, touch, like having somebody to give you a hug or a massage. Just kidding. Having somebody to love, like having somebody to enjoy your time with, having family, having community. These are probably far better for our health and far more important than beans from Dr. Greger.
The more beans you eat, probably the longer you live.
Beans.
I unfortunately got to jump off for another interview, but thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Happy to be on.
Thanks, Dr. Greger. Have a great day.
Awesome.
All right. Ben Pakulski. Good interview there.
This is Dr. Greger in the kitchen, where I take the science and put it into practice. Today I'm going to share with you my new favorite.
I love this. I want to make a video as Dr. Greger.
This is Dr. Greger.
I'll do a video, a day in the life of Dr. Greger.
No. Into practice. Today I'm going to share with you my new favorite
This is
beverage,
Dr.
a
Greger.
vegetable smoothie. That sounds kind of gross,
smoothie.
but bear with me. The idea for this came out of my research into nitrate-rich vegetables like...
Remember, guys, nitrates are bad from animals, but good from plants. And I think we'll sign out with that. So, Dr. Greger, I'm not seeing too much coherence here in the message. I'm seeing a lot of appeals to authority, a lot of trigger. Hey, look, we got 9 downvotes already on this video. We had 9 vegans. We got 180 people watching. I never ask you guys to thumb it up. I never tell you to subscribe. But when more vegans downvote my videos than the people who come in my chat all the time and have fun hanging out, and you guys don't even like it, that makes me a little bit sad. But I'm not going to sit here and beg you guys to like and share my video. But you know what? The vegans are working pretty damn hard at downvoting my videos, at constant barrages of comments telling me, you're going to die, you're going to die. And they love it. And they send their, and actually ask yourself, he has his little gang downvoting the video with Jay and I, talking to Ask Yourself and Richard Vegan Gains, downvoted the shit out of that video. They had like 500 downvotes, right? So, I don't know. It is what it is. Unsubscribe if you don't like it. If you're triggered, you don't have to watch. Don't spend your time writing an angry comment down below. Oh, I hate you. You hate the animals. You hate the planet. You're not going vegan. You're so mean to Dr. Greger. Don't bother, because you're just going to get deleted. You're just going to get banned. But, yeah, guys, if you like the content here, come back and hang out. If you enjoy what you see, come and hang out. If you don't like it, then bounce. If you've subscribed and you're triggered and you don't want to come, just unsubscribe. You don't have to leave angry comments or send me emails. You can just click the unsubscribe button. You don't have to get notifications and watch my videos if you're triggered. You don't have to come and downvote it. Just don't watch. I don't ever downvote videos. Right? So whatever. All right, guys. Oh, yeah, look, we got upvotes now. You gotta like and subscribe, guys. If you want more content like this, make sure to like and subscribe. I don't like that shit. But, you know, it is what it is, guys. We got a lot of people out there promoting all kinds of bullshit on the internet. And, you know, Dr. Greger rightfully calling out, saying, you know what, a lot of these people are just pushing nonsense. But you know what, I don't really see a coherent message here that would make me think he's giving much of an alternative, right? So he was trying to find a good meal, get as many nitrates as possible. Whereas earlier he was talking about nitrates, TMAO, meat causes cancer, probably because nitrates. Did he say nitrates? He might not have said nitrates, but is this something that is a message that's been pushed in the vegan communities, that nitrates in meat are bad. But apparently in plants, they're good. Same with TMAO, with everybody's favorite con man, Dr. Joe Kahn, talking about TMAO is bad in meat, where there's a study that came out 10 days ago talking about eat more TMAO to reduce your risk of heart disease. So these people act like it's cut and dried, cholesterol bad, meat bad, hashtag bald man bad, hashtag beard man bad. You know, they're just spitting a bunch of gibberish half the time. Right? I heard a lot of you-knows. I heard some appeals to authority. I heard some attacks on anybody who doesn't believe this is foolish and getting their advice from the internet. But then Dr. Greger's here telling you at the beginning of each of his videos. Let's hear how he introduces it.
Hello, this is Dr. Michael Greger coming to you live from my treadmill, as I do every month, to answer any questions you may have, particularly important for years like this. Every 3 years, write a new book, and on my book writing years, I am not on the road as much as I was, but in 2020, I will be back. My next book comes out December 2019, and maybe I'll do 200 cities or so like I did last time, and hopefully come to a city near you. But until then, every month at least we can do Q&As. I just did a live Facebook, and now here on YouTube. which I actually like better because I don't miss any questions because the questions just get kind of lined up and don't scroll past me. So let me get to the top and see what you have to ask.
He didn't start this video the same way. Usually what he says in the beginning of the videos is, I go out and pick through the most important research, scientific research, so you don't have to. And then he criticizes people for getting information off the internet, when his whole thing is about, I am the authority, I get the information, I give it to you through the internet, so you don't have to think for yourself. I'll be the first one to tell you, think for yourself. Question these so-called authorities. When people from the UN, when these big philanthropists, these big moneyed international interests, Rockefeller Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, are pushing plant-based clean meats, when Richard Branson and other fake billionaire philanthropists are pushing this crap on us, we got to question why. Now, Dr. Greger, hey, he got his degrees. He's out there pushing. He's doing what he wants to do. He's having fun. He's bobbling around. He's dancing. He's wiggling. He's moving. He's shucking. He's jiving. He's doing his thing. And that's cool. But we got to question where these people are getting their information from, why these people are pushing these agendas, and why is big industry, why are these big moneyed interests, these huge billionaire philanthropists, putting so much money into giving you fake meat, into telling you to stop eating meat, telling you to stop reproducing, telling you that humans bad, okay? Why are they doing that? Why? So, this has been another episode of the Eat Meat Make Family show. We've got loads of triggered vegans hanging out in the comments section. I love it. I love it. You guys can go get your troll accounts. You can jump on your Discord server, send the minions over, get them to downvote this video. That's okay, because we're going to spend our time being true to ourselves, being real, and we're going to eat meat and make families. I'll see you guys next time. I leave you with one of the best vegan songs ever written. This song is vegan friendly. This goes specifically out to the losers in the chat who just got banned, who love to come in here and troll the shit out of this channel because they got nothing better to do. We all need to just come together, guys. We all need to come together because we're just one. Humanity is one. And if we come together as one and we all become vegan and we sing this song together, we can heal the world. And this song has been proven to actually beneficially improve the gut microbiome. And this song is known to cure almost every disease known to man. So I leave you with the most friendly, the most heart-healthy American Heart Association song. The American Heart Association actually approves this song. And this is recommended for all people who don't want to have a heart attack to listen to this song and go vegan and buy Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die. Because Dr. Greger wants you to live forever. But Dr. Greger doesn't want you to ask him the hard questions. See you next time. Eat meat, make families, folks.
together